No thanks.
Mm.
All right, so it's saying setting up your meeting for YouTube Live. It's saying setting up your meeting for YouTube Live. Okay, it looks like we're live and it didn't let me put the title in, but we're here and I'll just jump right into it. Hey, everybody. I'm joined today by an incredible person, Freddy Silva. I've gotten to know him over the course of setting up a number of years at events, conferences, and his presentations are incredible. He's written amazing books, and I'm going to hand it over to Seth, though. Joined here with my co-host, Seth Pruzansky, and I'm sure people are very familiar with him, but he is an author and has gone through just hell and back and has the most positive and spiritually wise disposition in light of it all. But I'm going to let you kind of take the reins and introduce Freddy. Thank you so much, Freddy, for being with us. Well, and this is called The Missing Lands and Uncovering Earth's Pre-Flood Civilization. So take it away, Seth.
All right. Thank you. So hello, everybody. And yes, thank you, Laura. And thank you, Freddy. This show is actually the second show that Laura and I have done. It's called Conversations for a Brighter World. And the intention of it is to do just that, have conversations that are going to uplift and entertain and enlighten and just inspire people at these incredibly divisive times that we're all living in. And despite all the madness and chaos, there is a richness of goodness, of healing, of love, of support, of community coming together. And Freddy's actually the second guest that we've had on for this show. And it's super exciting because he's a close friend of mine and Laura's. So he's like a mutual friend of both of ours. And like Laura said, the presentations, the wealth of knowledge, of information, oh my God, you guys are in for a treat because,
oh my God, pressure.
Let's build him up so much. He just can't help but shine like a supernova exploding.
He's spent the whole show talking about how awesome you are. And, but I made you a co-host. So if you have pictures,
I envied myself.
Yeah, you'll be able to do a share screen. So if you have pictures and images you want to share, you'll be able to do that by hitting the share.
I'm terribly vain. I want to look at myself. That's fine.
He's one of literally the most comedic people there is, like his presentation. So, and this is what's missing in the world. You know, a lot of people don't realize everyone's so addicted to being so serious, but when you lighten up and you laugh in the face of those who want to oppress you, suddenly they don't have as much, their gun turns into like a floppy thing that they can't, because you're not afraid, you're laughing, you're in a state of joy.
You know, I remember years ago when I was I was asked to introduce people at a conference in, where was it? It was somewhere in California. It's a huge conference. And the person that was doing the presenting, she was very afraid of an audience. So they called up the head manager, said, can you find out where Freddy is? He'll probably be at the bar, yeah. Ask him if he's not doing anything. We'll pay him a couple of $100 to, introduce people. I thought, yeah, I can do that. I got nothing better to do. And I had to introduce 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. And I tell you, 2 hours of listening to that guy doing the most incredible humor on new age topics. I had to get him off the stage and he was like frightened. I said, have I been really bad? I said, no, we're in pain. Please stop. I mean, it was so funny, but at the very end, despite all the humor, the last paragraph is a very important spiritual message. He brings it all around so beautifully. It's one of the best presentations I've ever seen. I mean, and done well intellectually, but also with great humor.
Wow.
Awesome.
I love that. Well, look, let me, just so people know a little bit more about who you are, I'm going to continue to lift Freddy up here. I want to read his bio just so people know. Freddy Silva is a best-selling author and leading researcher of ancient civilizations, restricted history, sacred sites, and their intention with consciousness. He's published 6 books in 6 languages, described by one CEO as perhaps the best metaphysical speaker in the world right now. Whoa. And for 2 decades, he's been an international keynote speaker, in addition to appearances on Gaia TV, History Channel, BBC, and radio shows such as Coast to Coast. He is also a documentary filmmaker and leads private sellout tours to sacred sites worldwide. So that's just a little tiny bit. Having me personally, Freddy's come to my house. We've made these big sacred circles like around my house. You know, we've done it at other locations to essentially create geometry, to create, you know, to bring whatever structure is there in harmony with a greater intent. And my God, the workshops, like the things we do, everything that we've ever done together, you walk away just like, wow, what was I worried about? You know, you just
got the deer in the headlight look. I've been to one of his workshops there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I mean, so like the missing lands, uncovering Earth's pre-flood civilization. I mean, kind of take us into that.
Oh, there was a combination of a lot of things. I'm always kind of have things in different pies, but there was one thing that we've all been talking about, this missing civilization that was here about 12,000 years ago, that everybody talks about and everybody writes about it. And I actually wanted to write something that was different to what everybody else was doing. And I also wanted to bring it out before Graham Hancock brought out his new book, because every time he does it, he makes the rest of our work obsolete. So it was a personal thing I wanted to do to get there before Graham. And of course, he can afford to hire research assistants. You know, I am the research assistant, so it takes me longer to do anything. And once I got wind of what he was doing, and we're not in competition, we're all friends, I finally realized, wait a minute, we never talk about the people involved in the story. We talk about the megaliths. We talk about these incredible stone monuments, which, you know, there are places on Earth that were built with rocks that no crane on Earth can lift. That in itself is extraordinary. And the fact is that what we've built on top of it gets worse and worse and smaller as time goes by. It's the inverse of what's supposed to be happening. We get more stupid as we go through history. And you try to tell this to any person doing tours at these places, and they'll just call for the police and have you arrested. They can't handle the truth. And my point was, we never talk about the people. That was what I wanted to do with the missing lands. Focus on where they used to live, because we've been so focused on Atlantis and Lemuria. It's all you ever talk about. And one day, having a nice whiskey, I thought, you know, perhaps we're so blinkered with Atlantis and Lemuria, we've forgotten that there may be other places. And the more I began to ask indigenous people from their point of view, because let's face it, their predecessors were closer to the events than we are today, especially from a European Anglo-Saxon point of view, where most academia comes from. We are already 2,000 years behind the Egyptians. They are already thousands of years behind somebody else. So let's ask what the local people are saying. Now, once I began to look into that, asking from their point of view, the story began to get out of control. Because first of all, they're describing the fact that these people, these gods, and by the way, a god was essentially any person that had control over the laws of nature. They understood how nature works, they embodied it, and they were able to manipulate it, usually in a good way, not always. Basically, I found out that there was at least 8 locations around the world where the gods used to live. Most of them are now underwater. After the end of the Ice Age, sea level rises, boom, most of it's disappeared. A couple of them are still above water. They behave like islands, and they're on Lake Titicaca and also up in the Ararat region of the Caucasus Mountains, where Armenia is today. And the other thing was, who were these people? Were they all interconnected, or were they one group of gods around the world? Well, it turns out, once you start learning dead languages, and I mean dead languages, and you ask local people, what do these words mean? What are these? Who is 𝗏𝗏𝗏 and his 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏? And you ask the local Aymara, and they'll say, well, that means shining people in our language. Really? Well, that means you've just married 𝗏𝗏𝗏 in South America to the Egyptian flood gods, to the Anunnaki. That's an incredible story. And you think, how did these people on the other side of the planet come together? Well, Then I went to New Zealand. I found there's a group of people there no one's ever heard of called the 𝗦𝘂𝗏𝗏. They have an oral tradition and they also shared it. And they formed the connecting point with the Easter Island and the rest of the Pacific. In a nutshell, the book really was about how these people were getting around the world as easily as you and I go shopping for a can of baked beans, using these incredibly large catamarans. To this very day in Tonga and Samoa, they still build these incredible ocean-going vessels out of balsa wood, and they are quite incredible. They can house 200 people at any go. So all this stuff in the Pacific, from my point of view and from the point of view of the ancestors, shows that, first of all, the Pacific seems to be the region where virtually all human history began. All the stories that we find in Egypt and Sumeria really come from this central point of land that no longer exists. And that was the point when the Portuguese first arrived in the Pacific on islands, and the islanders said, well, these actually aren't islands. They are the tops of the mountains of the land where we used to live, which is now down here. So again, this is what I found interesting and so different, and that's what made the book so unusual.
That's amazing. You know, one thing you always talk about in relation to these ancient peoples that I've heard is you talk about this idea of these temples being initiatory chambers. They all have specific chambers for initiates that are looking to transcend whatever state of consciousness they're in order to embody a much greater one. Do you feel like this particular group of people was doing the same thing with their temples?
Oh, absolutely, and much more. I mean, they weren't always a coherent group of people. I mean, all you have to do is look at the stories of the gods as portrayed in the Greek legends to understand that they were also had their problems. And that seems to befall anybody that incarnates on the planet Earth. Just because you're a god doesn't mean you're perfect. If you're here, you're not perfect, people. Let me just bring the news right now. If you were perfect, you wouldn't have bothered coming here. I mean, you'd have common sense, because when you come here, it hurts. So the gods had their problems too. But all in all, every temple that I've visited on the face of the earth, there's a lot of them, they are all mirrors of the perfection of the cosmos. So when you walk in, you are reminded of that perfection because you've lost it. That's the only reason why you're there. But certain rooms, certain chambers, certain locations were different from others. So there were some restricted places where we don't know what took place. They didn't write the stuff down. Other places we do know what was happening, and it was to do with a restricted initiation ritual, which after 3 years of learning all kinds of written stuff and practical things, you were taken aside and get this. Insurance companies beware. You were given a poison, okay, over the course of a day, which made you comatose. It essentially clinically dead. And you actually were allowed to leave the body. Your soul literally left the body for 3 days. There's one account I found in Persia. Some guy left the body for 10 days. Greedy boy. And he basically, they basically would leave into the other world, and they would go there specifically to find information from an astral reference library. So people like Da Vinci, Isaac Newton, Plato, Pythagoras, all these people were part of this cult in a good sense, where they would know where to go with the right focus to extract the right information and come back and totally remember where they've been and what they've done, which is something you can't always do with ayahuasca or other drugs. It just gets in the way. This was a direct connection to another level of reality, and you're allowed to come back and continue your daily lives. And it's actually written, the instructions are written on at least 2 chambers in Egypt where no one's buried. If you know how to read your hieroglyphs, the story is right there, and it's over 4,500 years old, and that was copied from somebody else. So it's part of a very long tradition, which in the Western world, it becomes known as the living resurrection with the Gnostic Christians. And eventually, once you understand the story, read the story of Jesus, it makes a lot more sense than it does without understanding the language of mystical initiation. So yes, it was a very practical use of knowledge to raise the level of people here on Earth.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is why I travel on 67 planes a year.
It's a little bit tricky now with the craziness going on. So, I mean, even though civilizations get wiped out or we lose a part of history. I mean, obviously it's nothing ever really dies. So when people talk about like the return of the Anunnaki or the return of something, what do you kind of like seeing as a possibility as far as like us as humans having some sort of reunion or reconnection with some of these beings of our ancient history?
Oh, they never left. They just changed form, and that's any ancient culture talks about that. We're just occupying a physical vessel for a limited period of time, and when you die, your soul leaves, but your body decays. You just go on to another set of atoms somewhere else in the universe. So these people are alive on another level of reality. Let's call it. They're alive on another radio station while we're here on radio station 88 FM Earth. So they're still living. Just because you're dead doesn't mean you can't be useful, because nothing really, really dies. And that was the one central theme of all the teachings. Nothing ever really dies. It just changes form. That's all it does. So in a matter of speaking, if you can just reshape your understanding to that point of view, the concept of a new coming or a new Christ or the return of the Anunnaki, well, they're actually here. They're just, if you care to listen to these things, depending on your culture, you can access all of these people just by being in a state of grace, a state of meditation, connecting with nature, going to the temples. And I can't tell you how many people I take on tours that 10 days later, they're hearing things. They're not making it up. They actually are hearing the people that are still there, and they can communicate through these portals because that's what they were built for. The laws of physics are ever so slightly different in temples that allows you to thin that veil between the worlds. And if you're aware of what's going on, you can download stuff. So the help is always there because people that have been here, they know how hard it is. So for them to be on, let's say, dimension number 400, they're looking back at us and saying, well, they're going through a pretty trying period right now. The shift of ages is upon us. So let's see what we can do to further their progress and to give them a little bit, let's give them some goalposts. I mean, they still have to kick the ball for the goalpost. Otherwise, what's the point of being here? So the idea is that we're given information, okay? And one of the things that I learned during my time with some very good psychics in Britain. And I belong to a group of people that are highly tuned to certain information. So we're privy to things that some people just aren't, and that we act on it and we keep quiet about it. One of the things that came through was that I asked a question to this trance medium. I said, so what are you guys have been here before. And I'm talking about women as well. You've been here before on Earth. Where are you now? And I said, well, don't worry about where we are. You can't even begin to understand where we are, but we're still alive like you. We're not coming back. Why? I said, because it hurts. We got tired of being crucified. And those are the exact words. We just got tired of being hit by humans who didn't understand what we were doing because we looked different. We were taller. We had red hair. We had elongated skulls. And some people liked this and some people just didn't. It's the way it goes. So we got tired of being crucified. So now we just suggest things when you ask us for help, but you have to ask us for help. We can't intervene in the direction of human nature because it would defy the very first rule of the universe, which is the law of non-intervention. Star Trek fans, that's called the prime directive. And that's where Gene Roddenberry got the idea from the same group of people. And the idea was that they're sending us information all the time. And some of it's subtle and some of it is really overt, like crop circles. That's who was behind the original crop circles, were a group of people called the Watchers. And they called themselves the Watchers. And they said, excuse me, we've been around in your human history and you can check us out because we're actually fact. We're no longer in physical form, but just because we're not in physical form doesn't mean we can't be of help. We were the craftspeople that were around the lords of Anu. So these were the wisdom keepers. These are the carriers of knowledge, and they're the intermediaries. And they're always getting a bad rap on ancient aliens and people like that. And it really annoys me because all we get to hear is a small group of people that defied orders and did stupid things. Because like I said, they weren't perfect either. But the greatest some of these people were actually doing things for the betterment of people, for themselves, and the betterment of humanity. And they're still doing it to this very day. So it's we've got to be very careful about painting everybody with a very thin brush stroke. We've got to basically be a bit more gray matted around it. There are 100,000 shades of gray in this particular case.
Wow. I love it. Just
And
considering.
they also have a very good sense of humor, by the way.
They did?
Yes, they do. Anybody that's been out watching crop circles in the middle of the night, as I used to, my God, the leg pulling is ridiculous. I mean, we get it from good, we get a good source saying, well, there's going to be a crop circle down the Avebury Avenue in England, which is like the epicenter of the crop circle world back then. And I thought, okay, great, let's go and let's catch the circle makers at it. It'd be fantastic. So we take, brandy to keep keep your spirits up and keep the damp out. And by 2 in the morning, it's painfully clear that something is not quite right. So by 5 in the morning, the sun comes up and you think, all right, who do we get this information from? Because they're not going to have a very long career as a psychic. So we're getting a bit grumpy. We haven't slept all night. We haven't seen anything. Of course, they didn't tell you which side of the Avebury Avenue to look at, because we turn around, the crop circle appeared behind us. And afterwards, it was like, well, we just want to let you know that you can communicate with us, but we're not going to tell you how we're doing it. Oh, little bastards.
I love that. It turns out it was sheep the whole time, right? Sheeps were the ones.
Well, now we're getting to some serious conspiracy theory. And I have to say, the sheep are integral to the story, but
yeah,
you'll have to come to a presentation to hear the other side of the
story. Wow.
Well, when we look at just sort of the dark agendas and just this kind of targeting of humanity, the assaults that we experience with dark technologies and all the stuff that's rolling out right now to an extreme, where in sort of our ancient past and history would you say there's sort of remnants of these particular beings that have sought to hijack humanity's ability to thrive and step into their higher potential? Because we're dealing with like AI and transhumanism breathing down our neck,
It's a complicated story because first of all, like I said before, the gods were not perfect, and they admitted to that. They had their own issues too, so they weren't always on the same level. They weren't always altruistic. I mean, if you look at the original story of the Anu and the people of Anu, or the Anunnaki as they became called, or the Anunaga as they were called in the Pacific, they were talking about how there was a group of people who were very much in favor of helping humanity rise from a level of barbarity and hunter-gatherers. So Enki, the god, was behind that. And then you have Enlil, his brother, who was a bit of a bastard. He really was not very happy. He had a short temper, and he said, look, they're just hunter-gatherers. Just let them die in the flood. Just get on with our agenda. And there was also a bit of if you read the story, the original story of Enoch very carefully, and by the way, he was one of them. Enoch is not the real name. His original name was 𝗏𝗏. He was actually one of the Anunnaki. You got to read the original story, not the Hebrew version that followed it. And it turns out that Enlil was also had a bit of a friction going on there, and this is what the Greeks picked up on thousands of years later, that the gods were a very dysfunctional family. And when you read it, it's like, I don't think I want to spend Christmas with this family either. It's they were like misogynists, rapists, buggerers. They slept with each other's wives. I mean, it was a pretty crazy family. But within that, you also had people doing things for very altruistic reasons. So the thing is, you've got to look at Earth as a kind of sandbox. This is a place where people come to a very dense dimension to experiment, because there's nothing else to do in the universe except to have an experience. That's all there is to do. And once I learned this from my psychic friend who was channeling the source, it was actually kind of disappointing and enlightening at the same time, that the meaning of life is nothing more than to have an experience. And here you can make huge progress because it's dense, it hurts, but you know what? You can also make sure that you develop the skills to, overcome enormous changes in emotion. Or you can also feel things to a greater degree without a physical body. So sushi tastes better, sex is better, and so on. Or at least I hope it is for you anyway. Driving a Mini Cooper is the best thing you can have, the best fun you can have in your life. You don't get that in other levels of reality to the same degree. So everything happens here. It's a big sandbox. So you're going to get the light and the dark. And some people are doing things for right action, and some things are doing things for wrong action. The good news is that most of the people that I have encountered on my journey who are doing really stupid things, they don't have that spiritual leap that is required to really find out the truth about everything and the real secret to life. They're almost working at a kind of a 30% level, whereas people who have developed a much more coherent view of the universe are operating on the 70% level, which means they're always behind. The dark is always behind the light. As much as I want to believe that it's a 50-50 thing, actually it's not. It's love, light has a much more sort of flow to it. And that's what drives the dark crazy. They don't have the complete access to what people, well, hopefully like us, are doing. So a case in point, I mean, there's times when I was researching my first book on crop circles. And back then you had landlines and envelopes and stamps. You know, anybody who's tuning in who's under 30, you'll have to Google this stuff. It really did happen. And the cell phone was about this big back then. And I used to send information on the landline to people doing crop circle research, and I used to feed them bullshit. And then we used to go to the side of a hill and watch the military in England go around the field with weapons, hoping to catch the circle makers or a spaceship landing. And we'd be just sitting there laughing, we'd be shouting, the wrong field, because I'd already sent the people the right information via mail. And I'm not talking about email either. It was a great fun. I used to get clicks on my phone. So you know they were listening in, but they were always a step behind. And that's what I found encouraging, because no matter what they do to me, they can't get rid of me because they need people like me to understand what's going on. They're always one step behind. And I always found that very encouraging. And, you know, I hope it's happening to other people as well, that when there's not just a minority, but the more I see it in my work, it's encouraging that actually we are the majority. That's where it comes down to it.
How beautiful is that, you know? And there's such medicine in the way you express this and what the research represents, because again, when you think about it from like a physics perspective, the universe, the physical universe that we're in, this dense dimension, there's more coherence, there's more laws, natural laws of cooperation working together than there are chaos. Like, yeah, they both need to exist, but there's a lot more coherence. Like, take, for example, let's look at the Milky Way galaxy. It is one big, giant mess of, highly organized, coherent forces working together to exist. But within that, a star might be getting ready to explode, right? But that star is getting super hot and, you know, it's going to blow, and it blows, and there's a lot of chaos in that. But then all of a sudden it explodes, and then it's caught by the surrounding coherence that makes up the predominant bulk of reality. So there's much more of that. And that's relevant because look at what we're going through right now as a species. Like, what we focus on is we amplify that. We take this energy inside of us and we amplify it. And so when you have millions or billions of people focusing on, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this, or oh my God, I can't believe they're doing that.
That's your reality. Yeah.
That
it becomes your reality.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you like, but it's not going to get you very far. I mean, one of the central teachings of every single spiritual teaching I've been reading about and published work on, going back to Japan in 8000 BC, for heaven's sake. This is nothing new. They talk about, it's important to understand the dark side, but just don't get caught up in it because it can't go anywhere. You know, it has nowhere to go but down. But at least you have to understand it in order to also appreciate the light. And the trick of the initiate is to find that line, to walk the bit in between. And that's why the Templars had the checkerboard pattern. That's why the Scottish Rite Freemasons, not the London Rite, that's a whole different group of people. The Scottish Rite Freemasons, who were the Templars rebranded, they just changed their name, very clever. They use the checkerboard pattern, the light and the dark in perfect balance, the unison. But you have to understand both sides in order to know which side of the tool to operate when you need it. Because sometimes you have to use force to protect yourself. There are times when someone comes at you and you think, well, A, I'm going to die, or B, I can fight back to protect myself and my territory. You know, there are times when it's justified to protect what is important. You know, so you need to learn how to do that. So it's about looking at both sides and finding out how you walk in between. That's bloody hard work. It really is. And I can't say I've perfected it. I'm getting there. But the whole point of being here is because you're not perfect. You got time until you physically die to get it right.
Well, would you say that's like going from the tree of knowledge back to the tree of life, where the duality of, you know, experiencing the light and dark and learning how to integrate polarity can help us to reclaim that junk DNA? Because I mean, having some of these beings put like fences and seals in our DNA so that we can't access the fullness of all that we are, that we have to kind of earn it back, kind of?
You kind of do, but at the same time, if you follow the teachings, they say that you are in total control of yourself. You just have to be aware that the problem exists and then use your God-given intent to turn the situation around. So let's say if you follow the doctrine that we have junk DNA that's programmed to keep you within a certain box, once I become aware of that, I can also say, well, wait a minute, I don't need that. I can use my intent and the power of that, which we now know it works. It's a little electromagnetic signal that you sent out like an envelope. And once it hits the stuff that's there that you want to program, it will reprogram it because you are in control. Because remember, you're the God. There's no out there. The God is here. We're all expressions of a created force. And that's the one thing that Western religion has done so well, to say, oh no, if you want to talk to God or a creator, you got to pay me, the guy with a beautiful skirt wearing little red shoes. I mean, that's kind of suspicious in itself. So you have to basically use the power of your own temple to reclaim that temple. And I really do believe in that. It's all about self-help. It's all about self-development. You have to be aware of the problem and to focus on where that problem is, send that packet out, and you can twist that around. It's so simple, and yet paradoxically so hard to accept at the same time. And it requires focus, work, and repetition. You know, the things that we don't like doing these days because we want, oh, look, a little black box there to do the work for us, which, by the way, I use 4 times a year for making emergency phone calls. I use a cell phone for 49 days of music. That's what I use it for. So to become conscious of the issues around it, to be able to use that to turn the situation around, is what the ultimate challenge is. And I'll give you a great example. Actually, I'll give you 2. The transcendental meditation movement that came to the United States, I believe it was in the 80s, and the group of monks went to the most troubled parts of America, and they meditated at certain times of the year when the crime rate was very high. Lo and behold, the crime rate went down while they were focusing their concentrated intent to bring down the crime rate. As soon as they left, the crime rate went up again at a time when usually it doesn't go up. So that was the first point, that suddenly a group of people could do this to influence their surroundings. The second one was actually a technological breakthrough. Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Department at Princeton, they got a group of people in a laboratory and they said, right, we're going to teach you how to focus on one thing and one thing only. 22 people sitting around a computer, and the computer does what it does. It's going beep, 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 like a drum beat. The idea was to focus the minds and the intent of 20 people on this box to change that computer beat. And guess what? They did it. If we can do that to a machine, which we shouldn't be able to, which is always in the mind, of course, we can do anything. We can move a meteorite out of the way if we really focused on it. That's the power that we have, and that's why it's so dangerous, and why some gods didn't like that, and why some people in government don't like that either, and some people in religion don't like it at all. So again, it's about the perspective and how you see things. I take it that was the right answer.
Yeah.
But this has been said for thousands of years. It's nothing new. We just keep changing the words and the way we express this. It's really nothing new. It was been said in 8000 BC in Japan. There's a book called The Way of Ise. There's 17 ways, or Tai-yi. This is what Jesus was talking about when he said, I am the way. He's just given away the teaching that he was following, which by his time was what, 7,000 years old. So the way it talks about the 17 methods by which the gods put down information in books that you can actually develop within yourself to remind yourself of what you can do. This is pretty dangerous stuff to some people. So when you go to the Osirian, for example, in Abydos in Egypt, you go down that subterranean chamber, which actually wasn't subterranean at all, I discovered. It was actually a freestanding site at one point. There are 17 chambers, and each one of them, there you were taught the mysteries of Osiris, who of course is the god of resurrection, who doesn't die, goes into the other world, marries his divine bride. It's a wonderful love story, comes back resurrected as Horus, continues living. So that's the aim of all of us, is to, overcome our tribulations and be better within our lifetime. Bloody good fun, but hard work.
Totally. It's like the soul alchemy, is this, this is such a critical window period. People use the word ascension, and Mayan prophecies have talked about, the 2012 date, and, just this being a time of, a blossoming of human consciousness, but also the end times and sort of Armageddon apocalyptic type stuff. And we're kind of seeing all this playing out, and in the way like timelines work and stargates and the planetary grid network connected to ancient civilizations. What can you share with us about how you see this window period that we're in right now? Like great potential, but like we have to be careful because they're wanting to pull the carpet from underneath us, or like what?
If you ask the physicist, they would actually be very clear about it. The physicist would say, well, look at chaos theory. The greater the amount of chaos, the greater the potential jump to a new level of order. That's pretty inspiring. If that's a physicist saying that, then if we are looking at the world right now from, depending on your point of view, the world is actually much more coherent than we believe. It's just that I used to work in media for 14 years. I was in advertising, and I can tell you there's no real conspiracy. It's just that people need to sell newspapers, and the only way to sell newspapers is to put together stories which create conflict, because we love conflict. We've had the spiritual cinema circle that came around in 1990, and it didn't survive very long because all the films are all very positive. And it's like, well, where's the conflict? Star Wars does a great job of it. It really does. It's like you've got the conflict, and at the end, the light wins. So it's a wonderful way to keep that tension, but you've got to have the tension. And the idea was that you have to have this kind of this parameter where you are focused, depending on where your focus is where you end up going. So right now, I can tell you, hand on heart, we are that close to hitting critical mass. You just don't get to hear about it, but I see it when I go around the world, and I travel a lot. I have been to places, in conservative places like Ohio, and you think, what is this guy doing speaking in Ohio? He probably gets chased out of the state with people with burning torches. Actually, one of my greatest amounts of people on my mailing list is in Ohio. They come out of the woodwork. They want to hear what I have to say. And they're all very nice. They're all doing the work behind the scenes. They don't attract attention. There's a lot of stuff in the world, a lot of people doing great good, and they don't draw attention to themselves. Why? Because we got tired of being crucified in the previous lifetime, and it hurts. So we're not going to go there. We're going to do it subtly, very quietly. Like Seth, you got your own water business, and I can tell you, and I haven't been paid to say this, it's one of the best water I've ever drank in the world. It really makes you feel like you're on a natural high. So you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing, Laura's doing her thing. Now, from the point of view of the ancients, they said, well, the whole world is about cycles. There's actually no linear time. It's all about recurring cycles. Everything comes and goes and comes back in a way that's different from the previous cycle. But actually, it's kind of like the previous cycle, just amped a little bit extra. And the Mayans were saying, well, 2012 is a bit of a farce. It's actually a bit of a joke. Nothing was going to happen. It's a midpoint in the cycle. It's a 30-year window on either side. Now, if we haven't hit the critical mass by 2012, the window starts closing over the next 30 years, and it becomes a bit more difficult, and the universe will send messages and nature to wake people up. And you notice right now, as we're hitting critical mass and we're not quite going over the cliff with the critical mass, nature is beginning to show us it's going to fight back. And sometimes humans have to be taken to the brink to wake up. That's just human nature. if we don't hit it by 2042, we're going to be repeating this cycle of, you know, solar dominated power for the next 2,500 years. I've been there, I've got the t-shirt, I've got the wounds. I don't want to go through that myself. So the trick is, how many people are going to wake up in time to overcome this critical point where we do reach another level of reality? And it won't happen in our lifetime or the next. These things happen over long periods of time. Now, you tell that to the people in South America, Central America, the Pacific, in Tibet, they'll talk about exactly the same thing. These things happen imperceptibly over a long period of time. The trick is that the people that are here now are integral to the change, as they were in 2 generations before, because the wars that they created got us to today to the environmental movement. Think about that for a second. They had to go through that dark of creating war with everybody, blowing the entire world up twice in order for us to go, hey, that's not how you do it. Let's start an environmental movement where we have electric cars and solar power. And it's slow, but we are getting there. So you see how it works. It's a slow movement from one place to the next. And eventually it will happen, because I do believe, and I see it all the time, that we are very close to hitting that breaking point where most people would just say, okay, we're done with this. Let's go and try another way of living.
Interesting. What do you have to say about that, Laura?
Yeah, no, amazing. Yeah, so some kind of thoughts that came though is, you know, when we see sort of like false movements or just the psychological operations and how people are being played. So, you know, environmentalists might jump on the climate change wagon, or, you know, people that feel drawn towards this or that, you know, might somehow just get pulled into a movement that's funded by the very folks that aren't really looking out for us. And so the mind trickery is such a huge challenge. I mean, like, how are you kind of processing all the craziness with just the censorship and the masking? And I mean, obviously it's like a bit of digression to maybe like almost like a rubber band to like launch the Great Awakening. It pushes to the edge in order to have that breakthrough. I mean, but were you prepared for this, or are you a bit shocked when you wake up every day to the reality that we're currently in? I mean, I know it's not the fixed reality. It's a kind of a false reality projection, but how are you kind of processing, you know, all this and the level of trickery? Because it's really hard to see well-intentioned people get played.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you know, that have good hearts, and they're making decisions that are very detrimental, but they just don't know better, you know?
Well, the hard part of the day is waking up and realizing I can never seem to get a date. It's really hard work. I don't know why. But seriously, no, it's true. There is a lot of fighting for your soul. And it's been going on for hundreds of years, thousands of years. I mean, at least 2,500 years, and it really kind of began at the end of the Bronze Age, believe it or not. We were hit, talking with my good friend, Robert Schoch, the geologist. He wrote some lovely work on the times when we get hit by plasma coming out of the sun, very regularly, by the way. And it wiped out a whole section of the Near East, and it literally collapsed the Bronze Age. And from there, we're still recovering today from that. It's about a time of chaos, this social dysfunction, the loss of agriculture. So you're fighting for land and goods and people. This is where religion really comes from. Try to find a time when you can actually control people because of the chaos. So we're in this situation right now where all these systems are all falling apart, but they are there. And the trick is, and this is my technique, is if it usually comes from a dark place, if you've been guaranteed, or if it makes you feel kind of fearful, it comes from a very dark place. So the trick is, I go and read about it, and then I go and compare it to a completely opposite place of information. And again, having been around the media for quite a long time, I kind of pick my sources carefully. Without promoting anything, the Guardian newspaper in London is one of the best sources of open reporting still on the planet. If you want to go and compare that to Der Spiegel in Germany, they will print anything, even if it brings down their own government. That is still the pinnacle, I believe, of journalism to this very day. It's about reporting the facts as they are and letting the pieces fall where they are. So I'd like to compare different things. And sometimes I might even go and take a peek into Fox just to see what the fox is doing in the hen house. It's an interesting word for a corporation, by the way, that really tells the truth about, well, they're actually in a parallel universe, these people, but you have to go and find out what they're doing in order to gain as much information as you can. And the more information you have, the more you become discerning. And the way I discern is to figure out, how does this make me feel? And if I still get that gut feeling where I feel like I'm being punched in the gut and I'm being self-protective, I know that's not kind of what the truth really is. My truth is something that is much more expansive, but that's just me. I want to go with something that's going to be for the better of everybody and myself, of course. We're all very selfish people when it comes down to it. And why not? You were born, you might as well take time for yourself. The trick is, if I find information that for me seems to benefit more people, I tend to find there's more of a grain of truth to it. And if I look back in hindsight, actually, it bears out to be absolutely correct. It's to do with how you empower people. If it's the information is empowering, usually comes from a pretty good source. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't get played, and certainly I get played, and I have been played quite a lot in the past, but that's just part of growing up, and you correct those mistakes if you're able to, and you move forward. That's part of the experience. I don't think any of us, and if anybody actually is able to overcome all of these influences which take you down the wrong path, I'd say you're a bloody enlightened person. You know, I mean, really, when you think about it, I mean, we've all been fooled by something, even just a relationship where you think, my God, this is the most wonderful woman I've ever, oh no, she turned out to be Satan. What the hell is up with that? Well, now if I just get away from all that reaction, I go, what did I learn from this? And after about 2 years of crying and taking the knives from your back and all the pain, and you go, you know, I actually learned this, this, and this, and I'm actually a better person for it. And that's how you do it. It's the best you can do in this world, is to compensate for the errors and the mistakes, and then you become a better person. That's essentially the rhythm of life and the key to success. You fall down because it teaches you how to get back up again. The trick is not to make a habit of being stabbed in the back and falling down. Don't make a habit of it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, I got one for you. So you have probably traveled to more quote unquote sacred locations, meaning like the pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, hundreds or even thousands of ones that people don't even know, they're not on anybody's radar. You're probably one of the few people on this planet who's been to more of these locations than anybody else. And I'm wondering what it's like, because, you know, talking to you, you've mentioned a lot of similarities that you've noticed between these quote unquote sacred sites that are all over the world that don't seem like they'd be connected, but they pretty much are. They have these similarities there. Could you talk about those similarities and also how they compare to our own human physiology?
Well, they're basically, the temples are essentially mirrors of the perfection of nature, which then become mirrors of ourselves. The classic one is the bent pyramid in Egypt, which a lot of people think, oh, it's a mistake. No, the Egyptians did not do mistakes. That's just, it doesn't compute. And I've actually done the mathematics and the reason behind it. It turns out that the slope angles are a mirror image. Get this, they're a mirror image of the planet's Earth's precessional cycle. Now, in a nutshell, the Earth has a great year, which is about 26,000 years. And while it's rotating to complete that circle of 26,000 years, it's moving on its axis, 21,600 years. You divide those two numbers, you get a 5:6 ratio. That's the ratio of the slopes of the Great Pyramid, of the Bent Pyramid. And when you look at human DNA, we're made of little sugar crystals which are bonded to each other in the shape of pentagrams and hexagrams, which numerically is 65. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, how that temple works. It's a mediator between the planet and you. It's an incredible building. And every temple works in slightly different ways because they're all built to different reasons. But each time it's like, and COVID is actually a wonderful way of describing this. I haven't done as much traveling as I usually do. And I tell you, I can sit, it's like being a junkie without a fix. I start getting really angsty when I'm away from temples for a certain period of time. I got to put my fingers back in there. And once I'm in, I'm okay. because I've realized that they're feeding me as much as I'm feeding them. I don't just sit there and take things. I give something back. And it's something when I take people on tour, I say, you know what, we've come here to take something from the temples, but how about giving something back? And believe me, that what people experience when they do that, and I can give you names and addresses of people, they'll be more than happy to say this. We go to the Great Pyramid and we do if it's allowed, we'll have a guided meditation in there. People are seeing the same things that I'm seeing. Sometimes the stones disappear from above you and you see the Milky Way. And I thought I was imagining this until 6 people said exactly the same thing. And they come back different. When I contact them a year later, they've changed their lifestyle. They've altered their patterns of behavior. They become better people. And that's the whole point. Even me, 20 years ago, I was a very, very different person than I am today. And it's all because of what I've done in the temples and what they've done to me. But that's my purpose in life, is to become a better teacher and to demonstrate to others how something that's affected me in a positive way and has changed me for the better can also improve you too. So I go to these places to pick up a little bit and put something back. So there's a bit of an exchange going on all the time. And when you do that, it becomes almost, well, it's like a drug, isn't it? You want more of it. It makes you feel good. And I dare say,
being in love, you know, like a relationship.
Somehow it doesn't work that way. I don't know why. It's part of my, I don't know, it's just part of my, the reason why I'm here, I suppose. I mean, I have to say, having been single for quite some time has allowed me to be very, very productive in terms of books and documentaries. I mean, I've released 14 documentaries in the last, 10 years. So I do get a lot of work done from that sense, but we all have our own particular aim of why we come here. We just don't really fully understand till we die. That's the paradox. Or if you're very lucky, you will know it. And as soon as you understand why you're here, then you die anyway. It's like a cosmic joke. It really is. The universe is so full of strange Monty Python humor. But that's essentially what the temples are there to do, is to wake you up, to recognize that you are the temple. And after a while, you don't need to go to them. You know, you can just say, well, I already am it. I become it. I embody it. And I'm going to now project this to other people and improve people around me, or demonstrate to other people what can be achieved. Not all of them will get it. Some people will knock down your sandcastle and some people will help you build it. That's the way it is.
Oh my God. You know, that to me, I don't know about you, Laura, but that feels like the point of this entire thing. It's like the world has come to a place. Sorry, hold on. This is.
You just deleted the entire presentation.
No, for some reason it's not. When one of us speaks, it's not going on it regularly like it does. So I've been clicking on it. I don't know why it's not doing it.
I don't know how it's going to appear to everybody. I don't know. We'll see.
This is live, everybody.
It's live, guys.
But UPS man might ring my doorbell right now. Who knows?
Right? Well, I'm thinking, you know, we've known each other. We've all known each other before. What's crazy is the amnesia that we're born with. It takes so much to reclaim our history. You know, there's the attempt to rewrite history, to change history to suit a particular agenda. And that's a real tough part, because if we don't have the memories, it's very hard to like really truly heal. We end up just living very unconsciously and easily programmed. So reclaiming our memories and our true history is something else. And that's why your work is so incredible, because it's like you're preserving and protecting the sacred past, which is in the here and now and the future. It's like beyond time and space. So I don't know.
A lot of us also wake up at certain times. I mean, I'm only the continuation of the people that taught me. When I look back at my teachers, they've all gone now. They're mostly dead. They were the beginning of a revolution in the 40s and the 30s. And I learned from them. I'm giving it to somebody else. Someone else will pick it up from me. And that's how we keep it going, just like you two are doing as well. We're all waking up at different points in life. I mean, I think about half of my life that was wasted in, graphic design and advertising, selling washing machines. What for? Didn't really improve the universe. But you know what? I had to learn that in order to understand how to sell what I'm selling. And when I look back at it, it's like, yeah, my understanding of advertising helps me to sell a really hard product to a skeptical public, because that's what I had to do every single day. So for me, it's much easier to sit there and say, let's talk about people that lived 12,000 years ago and how they were much better than us. and you get this, deer in the headlight look from the audience, and you think, well, let me show you how my logic works. That's how you do when you sell a car on television, believe it or not, with a bit of emotion attached to it, of course. But it's the same process. And I think some of us are here. I mean, look at all the kids that suddenly wake up today and they are already fully enlightened. It blows my mind. A lot of them are completely stone dead in their head. I mean, they're just walking around, getting run over by cars at zebra crossings, looking at their cell phones. But you've got these other kids which have been born with incredible abilities. They're awake from the first moment they came out of the womb. So I think that there is a plan. Okay, there is always a plan. We're just not aware of it, because the whole point of being here is to forget where you came from, because then you have to spend the time going to the right lectures, reading the right books, looking at the right podcasts in order to wake you up to at a certain point when you are meant to wake up, because then you can be useful to society. And I kind of like that, because the more I live, the more I realize, actually, that's actually what's happening. Like Shakespeare said, the whole entire world is a stage and we're the players. And he's absolutely right. Of course, Shakespeare didn't write that. It was actually the Earl of Oxford, but that's another story. But the point is that we are all playing a part in this drama, while we're also playing our own drama, which is, why have I come here? But at the same time, we're cogs in a big wheel called humanity, and we're helping the other cogs move forward as well, which then moves forward the cog of time, which is where the cycles come in. So these are cogs within wheels, within wheels, within wheels. It makes your head go crazy, which is why I drink a lot. It really does help.
Look, I feel like so much of what we're going through collectively as a species right now is this perfect catalyzing force that is bringing us to this place as a species where we're beginning to realize that we're not just consumers of all things external. We are literally these living temples. And the more that we become conscious of that, we take responsibility for it, we start to intentionally go inside and explore the rooms of the temple, meaning the organs of our body, the energy systems that are in them, the more all this stuff kind of just figures itself out through us on its own, because it's already self-evident, available information to those who just open themselves up to it. Exactly. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I mean, look at what's happening around the world right now. I mean, the problems in Myanmar, for example, terrible stuff that's going on there. But you know what? If you pull yourself back from the emotion of it, these people have chosen to be part of this incredibly nasty little revolution to demonstrate to us how not to behave. Okay, when people are caught in a major natural disaster, they've agreed before they're born to be part of that disaster to show the cooperation that exists in humanity. 36,000 people lost their lives in that tidal wave in Indonesia, what, 15 years ago? Seems like a long time ago now. But look at the outpouring. If you could just step back from the emotion and the loss of life, which is terrible, pull back a little bit further. This is another teaching of the mysteries which you're taught. If you can get away from the emotion and look at it objectively, what happened? Governments pledged to give billions of dollars in aid. They gave nothing. It was just voter fodder. The people that gave the money were us, sending clothes, sending food, a bit of money. That's how the world helped rebuild those people in Indonesia. And suddenly, these people that you'd never met got help from people around the world that they didn't even know existed. And together, we realized, oh, we're actually much closer as a people, as a humanity, than we thought we were led to believe. You see what I mean? So this terrible event brought out and woke people up saying, actually, we're far more connected than we imagined. Well, that's power.
That's power. That's so beautiful. My God. You know what, Laura, I want to ask you a question, because in reference to everything he's saying, because all of us, like as individuals and as a society and as a species, when we witness terrible things happening in the world, if we have our humanity intact to a degree, we can't help but feel bad. We feel like, oh God, why is that happening? And we have an emotional response from it. But being an astrologer, right, and the amount of work you've done with astrology, do you feel like at some point you witness that when a soul incarnates, it has already come with, even if it's like a rotten human being, like somebody that we would look at and be like, wow, that dude's a freaking sociopath. Like, look at all the stuff they're doing. But then when you look at their chart, you see, oh, they're just playing out all of these old karmic consequences in a way that will help them resolve it. And we might not see that because we're in this like, oh my God, he's awful. We're judging it. We're ascribing all this meaning to it. But ultimately, it's this greater cycle that's playing itself out. But were we not so emotionally invested in judging it, we might be able to be aware of that. Do you recognize that? Do you see these soul contracts playing out like that? And is that what you would say they are?
Yeah. And that's definitely based in like the South Node and North Node, the energy signature that somebody came in with, and the patterning that is connected to the South Node particularly is going to be, a theme that somebody's working out or working with in order to integrate the North Node and step into that opposite. Because on a soul level, in our soul journey, we really need to integrate polarity to be able to sort of live out the astro map to get to the 0 point, So to me, it's like this patterning that we experience, and we keep experiencing it until we create that breakthrough. And because we're elemental beings, it's going to affect either our mental body, emotional body, physical body, or spiritual bodies. And they're all, they should all be functioning, together. So any kind of glitch or any kind of like, anything that's not really in balance or out of whack is going to create a need for correction, which others might call karma. And so a lot of those patternings do bleed into, this particular incarnation for people. And sometimes people just start off with like a clean slate. They worked out whatever they needed to work out. And it's sort of like everything's fresh. For other people, it's like super heavy. It's like, and there's even a show about, I think it's called The Ghost in My Child, where the children are having these bleed throughs of past lives, where they'll be drawing pictures, or they'll be like literally like reliving the trauma, and the parents like really don't know what to do. And they'll be referring to these past lives and talking about it like it just happened yesterday. So it really depends on the person and where they're at on their soul journey. But like Freddie was saying, sort of like the baton gets passed, information gets shared, but it's similar to our astro chart. We pick up kind of where we left off. Sometimes we're in recognition of a much larger picture mission that we've been on for many lifetimes. For other people, they might play a villain in one lifetime and then be, the fat lady that sings at the circus in the next lifetime, or, has very, very different experiences each time to then gain sort of a soul awakening to be a lot more conscious and mindful of the trajectory of one's soul path, and as far as how it relates to the larger picture as far as humanity is concerned, I guess.
It comes back to having an experience. There's nothing else to do in the universe except to have an experience. And I mean, I've always had this belief, I don't know how true it is, that sometimes the worst despots in the world, people who've done horrible things, they've actually probably quite ascended from a bigger soul perspective, and they've come down here with complete loss of all the good that they've done in millions of incarnations to demonstrate how bad you can get to wake everybody else to how not to behave. The ultimate challenge of anyone who's done everything and got the t-shirt and they're also lightly is to lose all of that, come back as a complete bastard, behave in terrible ways in order to demonstrate the futility of hatred. I can't think of anything more challenging for someone who is so developed spiritually than that. And it's just a theory that I have. I can't prove it. But at the same time, there was also a time when I was working with my group in England with a channeling circle. And we're always getting information. I said, well, let me ask them some questions for a change. I want to find out more about them. We're always sitting there getting stuff. Like, let's throw the talking stick back. And I said, well, who the hell are you? And we actually got close to one group who were very close to the source. And they said, well, we've incarnated so many times, we don't need the need to do it anymore, because we've done it all, got the t-shirt, and now we're helping younger souls like yourself through their journey. That's the way it is. I said, does that mean you're the creator? I said, oh, no, we're not the creator. We're pretty close to the creator. I said, so you can see the creator. And the whole group in the circle just moves in. I thought, that's a great question. We're finally going to find out who God really is. And they said, we don't actually know. We can feel it all around. It's a big light. It's very loving, but we don't want to know who it is. So, well, why not? Well, because it would ruin the very last question that we still have. Who created all of this? Once we actually ask that and we find out, we will merge with it and we lose our identity. So I figured, my God, these people have done it all. They're right there. They've got the answer to the universe, but they still want one more experience. What is God? What is the creative force? Where does it all come from? And they're being so humbled about it. And they said, just don't worry about it. Just live your life. And they said, in fact, to quote one of your songs on earth, don't worry, be happy.
I love Bobby McFerrin. I actually got to do a workshop with him one point years ago. It was a riot. I met him. I was at the urinal, and all of a sudden he was at the urinal next to me, and he's like, I was throat singing, and he's looking over, he goes, that sounds really good. And I'm like, oh, that's Bobby McFerrin. But anyway,
I know. Like an album, Bobby McFerrin at the urinal, live at the urinal.
Live at the urinal. I should have recorded this before phones. But I want to say something in light of what you both said. The value of that to people who are listening and paying attention is there's so much worth in it, because it's essentially like, if even a part of this stuff that we're talking about is true, then it brings it all back to us as the individual. Like, why are we spending so much time judging others or giving our attention to things that are going to further divide us, when we could be instead taking the mirror, facing it right back to ourselves, and taking responsibility for how we perceive reality, which would be so much more empowering than expecting somebody else to be our savior or blaming somebody else for our station in life.
That's way too easy.
Yeah.
In fact, that was also one of the teachings that we learned in the channeling sessions. I was amazed to find these things written in a couple of books called Michael Newton, the clinical psychologist, Powerful Souls and Destiny of Souls, two of the best books I've ever written about past life and reincarnation. And he was a clinical psychologist. He wasn't into any of this woo-woo stuff. And they were incredible books, because we were getting the same stuff during channeling. And they said, one of the things that I learned from all this is that, A, you are responsible. Okay. It's like the Hopi said, you're the ones who've been waiting for. There isn't the whole concept of God being out there and all of this. That's a Christian. Actually, no, I won't confuse Christians with Catholics, because they're two very different people. There's a Catholic Western belief that somehow we're separate from everything, and we're so, oh my God, God is very judging. God doesn't give a damn one way or the other. It just wants you to get on with your life, because we are God. We are the expression of that God. It can't do anything but say, just go out and do stuff, man. I want to experience life for you. So the idea is that once you get over this, you don't have to believe me, but if you can just accept that you came here with a plan, and you're deliberately asked to forget the plan, because otherwise it'll be too difficult, and you just, you take your car off a cliff and go back to where you came from. The idea is that you've came here with a plan, and you've got to see it through. And sometimes it's an easy plan, and sometimes it's a difficult plan. But the thing is, there's a purpose to it. That's the whole point. Once I learned this, and I learned this very late in life, I have to say, once I learned this, 80% of all my problems that I've been carrying with me disappeared. I've taken responsibility. Doesn't mean I'm right all the time. It means I'm responsible. I don't know why. And believe me, when you look at life that way, life is just so wonderful. That guy just cut me up right now. Well, am I going to judge him and call him an asshole? Well, I can do if I want to, but I can say, well, maybe just having a bad day. Let him go. I got better battles to pick, like publishers and things like that. But it's a process of learning. It's a constant state of development. And the trick is, don't be too hard on yourself. Yes. We're so hard on ourselves all the time. And the tool that I use to avoid this, music. I have a music library. You will not believe the size of this thing. It's ridiculous. I'm going to have to move out of my house soon. And it's only because I keep moving countries that I have to keep getting rid of some of it. At some point, I had 5,000 albums. Okay,
actual vinyl
therapy. If I'm feeling, not untoward, I'm feeling that the world's coming down on me. My girlfriend left me. Someone just scratched my mini. I'm going to put an album on, and I feel so much better. Music is such a wonderful tool to get you acquainted with things. I've written entire books to John Series music. He designed planetariums. I'm sorry, design planetarium music. I've had lunch with the guy. He's a lovely guy, and he works with hospice as well. He looks like a hero, okay? And you think, this guy works in hospice? Wow. And I've written an entire chapter just listening to his music in the middle of the night. I didn't even realize it was even done. So you've got to find your tool. You've got to find your mechanism in order to get through the world. But, you know, do it well. Don't beat yourself up.
Yes, that's a huge one. Be gentle.
And if all else fails, there's always Black Sabbath.
Everything. And just humor, you know, just laughter. I feel like I celebrate every day. And if I don't, something's wrong. And so I'll push myself to grab that album or grab that whatever, to just flip that switch, to just, you know, just be dancing with life. And the Matrix is whatever. I mean, that it's just a false construct that's just feeding, like a vampire, a parasitic system.
Yeah, it's there. You just don't have to buy into it. Yeah, you just don't buy into it if you don't want to. If that's your thing, buy into it. It's not going to get you very far. But sometimes, at some point during the day, you're going to have to either pick up a sketch by Robin Williams, his sketch on golf. You have to go to the bathroom before you watch this. It's ridiculous. But the worst one is, and I mean that in a positive way, is Eddie Izzard doing the Star Wars Death Star canteen scene with Darth Vader and the guy who's trying to get him to pick up a tray to put some food on, and he's got his ego on the run. Go to the bathroom before you watch this, because it is frighteningly funny. After that, nothing really matters in the world. No, you're right. You got to find your tools to get yourself through life. Otherwise, you go a little bit mad.
Yeah. I don't like those. I mean, I'm all about dark night of the soul journeys and spent a lot of time in those dark places, but it's part of the regeneration that nature teaches us. You know, we exactly. Like the phoenix that rises. I mean, the amount of deaths we go through within this one body, you know, we just keep rising and getting back up, like you said, but we don't want to keep falling down and have the knife in our back. But
yeah, the trick is not to make a habit of it.
Yeah.
Well, look, Freddie, thank you so much for coming on with us. It has, as always, it's been a joy. I can't wait until we've agreed we're going to go look for crystals together, or do something with our close friend Angela up here.
That's crystals, people, not crystal.
How cool you guys like are so in close proximity. Yeah. I'm envious. I want to just come and visit and join you.
Well, you might as well come up here. We're going to do this huge event that I told you about. You know, like there's Maine suddenly is turning into this like hotspot of conscious community. It's I've lived here my whole life, and I'm like, I can't believe it's finally happening now. I'm like, thank God.
That's why I live in Portal Land, not Portland. It's Portal Land.
Portal Land.
And when you come here, you can also go to Seth's well house, where the spring comes from the water. Believe me, you have never been in air that you can just suck up from the water coming out of the well. It's like you're on drugs. It's the most incredible energy, that water. It really is. I'm not joking. It's the only time I felt that high was drinking water coming off a glacier in New Zealand that was over 30,000 years old. It's like you've got a natural high because of the mineral and the oxygen content.
Electrostatically charged, that's what it is. It's because it's so structured by the planet, and it emerges in that one point in perfection. Like not a lot of things are perfect in this world, but the few that are, man, they take you out
for a visit.
Yes, she's got her home
right there too. It's funny, but it's been such a pleasure. It's so uplifting. Just love your energy and all that you do, and your great service.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you
haven't seen you in ages though.
I know. Well,
I'll catch up with you on some conference somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. We'll do some online conferences if we can't travel as easily. But so the missing lands, though, is that your next book, or is that the next documentary? Like what?
It's already come out, and of course, going back to the
plug everything. Tell everybody where we can find you.
Well, at the beginning of the program, I was joking that I wanted to get the book out before Graham Hancock. Well, guess what? His publishers bring out his book exactly on the same day that mine was launched. So people are only just now discovering there's another really good book on ancient civilizations. So it's available at invisible-temple.com. And there's a wonderful documentary that goes with it called The Missing Gods. It's one of my favorites. And it goes, if you can't travel, this is free travel around the world.
Wow.
Yeah. And we'll put all the links and everything in this video too, if they're not there yet.
Because I know where you live, mate.
Yeah. Please do.
Awesome. It's been so wonderful to be with you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.